Good afternoon. My name is Gina Sinta. I'm the Deputy CTO at Thales Trusted Cyber Technologies. Today we're going to have a discussion about the best practices for migrating to the quantum-resistant security. Okay. Just a little bit real quickly about who Thales TCT is. We're specifically focused on the U.S. federal government. We have products that will secure the network through high-speed network encryption. We also have identity access management tools, as well as encryption of data at rest and in motion. And we, like I said, we're specifically focused to the U.S. federal government because our parent is a French-owned company, so we stay separated by a CFIUS agreement. Okay, so let's talk about what the quantum threat is all about. How many of you understand why we're talking about this migration to post-quantum and how important it is to do that? Okay, well, let's go over it real quickly then. So what we're concerned about with this quantum threat is that when there is a quantum computer that is cryptographically relevant, it can break PKI as we know it today. And that's where the threat lies with asymmetric encryption. So what has been happening over the past 10 or more years is industry, along with standards bodies, have been looking at developing algorithms that can be strong enough to prevent that from happening. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know when that quantum computer will be powerful enough to do that, but we want to make sure that we're ready when it does happen. One of the threats with that, our adversaries, we know for a fact, are harvesting our data today so that they can decrypt it later when they have a computer strong enough powerful enough to do that. And so that's why we need to start preparing now so that we can be ready for that threat when it occurs. So how is that quantum computer going to break this PKI as we know it today? It's going to have the capability to forge signatures and impersonate entities and be able to load malicious OS patches within a system. There'll be these man-in-the-middle network threats where they can access secure systems and be able to compromise the military command and control systems, as well as to be able to decipher historical confidential data. And really what we're talking about from a data perspective is that long-lived data, that data that you collect and you keep around for years and years and years. You're not worried about, data that you use today and delete tomorrow, because that's not where the threat is. The threat is around, valuable proprietary information, around, medical healthcare information, around, government secrets and, classified information. That's where the threat is the greatest, right? With that long-lived data, they're going to keep it and then try to decipher it through decryption with this computer when it's capable. There's been a lot of mandates out of the White House for the past couple of years to start getting you on the road to the migration effort. And if you take a look at this slide, you'll see that National Security Memorandum, NSM-10, came out in May of 2022 that outlined the policies and the initiatives around the migration of post-quantum. And then White House OMB M2302 came out in November of 2022, where it was stating that you have to assign somebody within each agency to do the cryptographic inventory and then to be able to submit that inventory to the appropriate parties. Now, on the civilian side, the appropriate agency for collection was CISA. And what CISA did was they developed an Excel spreadsheet that said, here's the information we need you to collect about your cryptographic systems today. And it needed to be submitted to CISA by May of last year. There were quite a few agencies that did not meet the deadline, so they gave them like a grace period in order to get that done. But that's the first step, and it was a manual process. And we'll talk a little bit about what do we do next, because it's not a one and done. It's a process you have to continue to do throughout the crypto lifecycle. Then there was the CNSA 2.0, the commercial national security algorithm CNSA 2.0 that came out of NSA, and that was released in September of 2022. In April of this year, they released a frequently asked questions document that has a lot more details in it. So if you haven't taken a look at that, it's good to look at that because there's a few guideline changes that have occurred since the original document came out. Then the Quantum Computing Cybersecurity Preparedness Act came out in December of 2022. And then last year we saw two very important documents come out of the White House. The National Cybersecurity Strategy came out in March, and then in July, followed by the National Cybersecurity Implementation Plan. So oftentimes this document will refer back to some of the other documents that you see listed up here. But if you're looking for guidance on what you need to do, these are the documents that you want to take a look at to kind of start figuring out what you want to do. Now, when we talk about quantum, sometimes when I'll bring up the subject, somebody's like, I don't understand quantum, it's very complicated, the mathematics of it all. That's not what we're here to talk about today. And one time I was at a session where a gentleman from IBM talked about the yin and yang of quantum. And this is what makes it really easy to understand. The yin is the computing aspect of it, which IBM is doing a great job of developing that quantum computing capabilities. The yang of that side of it is the threat to the crypto and the migration to post-quantum. So that's really what I'm focusing on today, but the driver behind that is that quantum-capable computer. For the past couple of years, this was kind of the messaging of what we were telling our customers, how they needed to start moving on the preparation for migration to post-quantum. So we were telling them, you've got to get the executive support buy-in, because if they don't understand the threat and the problem and why you need to do it, and this is a long-range challenge, so sometimes people don't want to talk about it because they want to talk about zero trust or they want to talk about AI. They don't want to talk about quantum because they're like, we don't know what's going to happen, so we'll worry about it later. But you really can't do that. You have to start doing it now so that you're prepared when it does happen. Then the next step was to identify the risk data, right? So identify those high-risk applications with that long-lived data that has that threat of that harvest now, decrypt later. And then to be able to catalog your crypto-agile infrastructure. And crypto-agility is a really big, important piece to being able to have a smoother migration to post-quantum, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'll go into a little more detail on that, but that's something you need to make sure when you're talking to industry vendors whose products you use that support asymmetric encryption, that you find out what their crypto-agility strategy is, because that's going to be that's going to make or break how smooth your migration to post-quantum will be. And then discuss what your PQ strategies will be with vendors, which is right up there with talking about crypto agility. Because we as industry, we have to be ready before you are so that you can then go and implement all the changes that we have implemented within our solutions. Now the strategy, which I kind of looked at what other people are saying in the industry, and we looked at what we're saying with our customers. The first step was then, these are the things you need to do. This is what you need to do now. And that is that crypto inventory of your technologies and prioritize those high-risk systems. So this is something you probably should have done already, but like I said, it's an iterative process. And what the next step you need to do is start talking to industry, technology vendors, and find out who has these tools that can automate this crypto inventory process. And there's quite a few of them on the marketplace today. There's a company that we've done some work with called InfoSec Global. They have a tool that'll do that crypto inventory for you. And IBM has one, another company called Sandbox AQ, they have one. So there's several companies on the market where you can now automate this process. So you don't have to maintain this spreadsheet philosophy that you started with in those previous steps that were done last year. So that's important to automate that process because you're always creating more and more crypto, so you're going to need to run this process on a recurring basis. And I talked to somebody from ISG last week, like, where do you see your customers doing this? How frequently? He said some are doing it weekly, some are doing it monthly, some are doing it quarterly. So it just depends on your high-risk systems and how critical it is. The next step in that migration process is not like you're going to migrate your production systems right away. You need to set up a test environment. So you need to have an environment where you can start testing all your different technologies that leverage that asymmetric encryption, and being able to test those algorithms once they're implemented within the products that you use today. And then to be able to practice that crypto agility. That means you really want to be able to ensure that the solutions you're using today are not going to only support your legacy classic algorithms as we know them today, but they're also going to be able to support movement to the new quantum safe algorithms. And that's what crypto agility is all about. If you're using older equipment that is probably more towards its end of life, industry is not upgrading those older technologies to support post-quantum. So if you're doing any type of data center modernization projects and you're looking at solutions that do support asymmetric encryption, that's where you need to make sure that those systems are not only going to support what you're doing today, but to be able to support those quantum algorithms in your post-quantum migration effort. And then implement those algorithms within your system. For the past 2 years, in our hardware security modules, we made what's called pre-standard algorithms. We implemented them in the device, and with a firmware upgrade, then we made them available for our customers to start testing. Initially, our technology partners were doing that, those that integrate with our HSM, but now we've had customers that have been doing it as well. And we're under a signed CRADA with the National Security Agency where they have been testing our HSMs with the quantum algorithms for the past 1.5 years. So they're staying ahead of the game with it too, because crypto is NSA's, that's their baby. And they're the ones that developed the CNSA 2.0. So it's really important to them to make sure that the standards that they have set up with CNSA 2.0 get implemented within industry solutions as well. And then, of course, implement those quantum algorithms within the applications, within the appliances that you use today that support that. Now, CISA, NIST, and NSA have been working collectively for the past couple of years on this chart for that timeline for migration. And these are all estimated because we don't know when that cryptographically relevant quantum computer will be available, okay? So this is all just based on what they believe will be the scenario. And as you can see from the diagram, from 2021 to 2023, which is all past, that's that inventory and prioritize your systems. And then in 2024, NIST standardized the algorithms. That took place on August 13th of this year, 2024, where they released 3 of the 4 algorithms as standard. There's one more algorithm left that should be released by the end of the year. That doesn't mean they're the only ones. They're still evaluating other algorithms that were submitted because they want to give you options and choices, because certain algorithms are going to have stronger key strengths, which could affect the performance of your applications. So it gives you options so you can test the different algorithms to see which ones are going to be the most effective in the applications that are you're going to need to migrate to the PQC algorithms. And then what they're saying, transition to the post-quantum standards. And then by 2030, they think there'll be a cryptographically relevant quantum computer that would potentially be available. And this is all speculation. The analogy I like to use with this timeline, how many of you lived through the Y2K? Yeah, okay, me too. That we knew was an end date. We knew that any applications that had dates in them that didn't have a 4-digit year could potentially, the results could affect searches when you went from 1999 to the year 2000, right? But we knew January 1st, 2000, we needed to be ready, right? So we knew there was no delay. With this, because we don't know, we're seeing people tend to say, well, I'll worry about it later because that's kind of far down the road. I'll be retired by then. I'm not going to think about it. But you really can't. You have to start developing it today. Your strategy, your migration plan, testing solutions to make sure that you are ready, because then you don't have to worry about it, or whoever follows in your footsteps after you've retired don't have to worry about it either. The next thing, like I said earlier, with crypto agility, this is all about being able to have the ability to modify the underlying crypto primitives without having to do a complete product refresh. And that's where, it's industry's responsibility to do that. I've been on several meetings where NIST has hosted these hour-long or more conversations all around crypto agility. And sometimes it means different things to different people. So what we're trying to do, industry with academia and with NIST, is to come out with exactly what we're talking about with crypto agility and how to go about ensuring that your solutions that you're using and that we're providing to you are crypto agile. Now, just to get a feel for like where we've been and where we're going, this shows you that back in 2016 was when NIST put out an announcement for a call for submissions for the algorithms. And then as you look through the timeline here, in 2017, round one, there were 69 algorithms that were qualified based on the NIST evaluation. And then as we move forward, we're now in 2024 where these algorithms were actually released this year. So this has been a very timely, meticulous process that NIST has been going through. And this is not just a U.S. federal government or a U.S. challenge or problem. This is a global challenge, and everybody's involved in this. So what are those 4 algorithms? Originally, the former names that were submitted when the algorithms were submitted, there was Crystals Kyber, Crystals Dilithium, Sphinx Plus, and Falcon. Now, when NIST developed the standards, they've now changed the name to NIST standard names. So you'll see up here that Crystals Kyber is ML Chem, which is for module lattice-based key encapsulation mechanism. And then MLDSA is for model lattice-based digital signature standards, and they each have their own FIPS standards, so it's 203, 204, 205. Sphinx Plus is SLHDSA, and then the last one that's coming will be, they say the end of this year, is the Falcon algorithm, and the reason it's taking longer is the math in the algorithm is extremely complicated. And so they say it will be out by the end of the year. That's actually one that our Thales group out of France worked with academia to develop that algorithm as well. We at TCT weren't involved with that. But these standards that are coming out of NIST are being followed by a variety of standards bodies, not only NIST, but the PKI Consortium. There's this whole list, ANSI, Cloud Security Alliance. All these different organizations are looking to NIST for these standards, and they're going to be implementing those and following those across industry. The NIST is very active in this endeavor. They've started through the NIST, the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. It's located in Rockville, Maryland. Migration to Post Quantum Project. This is a consortium of, we started out with maybe 8 to 10 collaborators, which we were on that group to begin with. There's now almost 40 collaborators that are industry, academia, federal government, private sector, involved in figuring out how to make that migration to post-quantum smoother. There are 2 work streams that are going on right now. There's the discovery work stream where we're looking at those crypto inventory tools and testing those out. And then there's the interoperability and performance work stream, and that's what we're involved in with all the different HSM vendors. These different artifacts are available on the NCCOE website, so you can take a look and see, like, what are the performance outcomes for each of the HSM vendors? What was the test plan that was used across all of these vendors to test the algorithm? So it's a great resource to use in your planning process. Now, to summarize this, as I said in the beginning, the first thing is doing that crypto inventory. And if you've done a manual effort for that, your next step is to automate that process because it's going to be something you're going to need to continue indefinitely. And then be able to set up that test environment and then be able to implement the algorithms in your test environment so that you then can be able to migrate that to your production environment when you're ready. So what is that end date of 2030? The Cloud Security Alliance has a migration to post-quantum clock, And if you go out there, you'll see it ticking away. I did a screenshot of this last week right before I had to submit this presentation. And this is showing you that it's, 5 years, 100 and some days, a couple of hours and minutes till that 2030, April 14th, 2030 timeframe when they think that this relevant quantum computer will be available to break crypto as we know it today. So the time is now. Don't wait. And if you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to talk to you either here after this or in our booth at 723 down on the show floor. Thank you.
Can we ask a question though?
Yeah, sure.
So your date of 2030, actually in CNSA 2.0 they say 2035 is the target to have everything migrated by.
Mm-hmm.
Are they planning to update that date to 2030 based off of your Cloud Security Alliance?
I don't know. Everybody has their own end game guessing date. I think they want you to be completely migrated by 2035, even though 2030 could be when they think there's a cryptographically relevant computer. It's
Right.
not going to be a quick process. That's why they really want people to start doing it now.
I fully
Right.
get it.
Yeah.
I like the 2030 date better.
Yeah.
It's a call to action.
Yes, that's for sure.
So we at IBM published our quantum roadmap,
Right.
right, and we just updated it with the new dates. And we are targeting 2030 as well. But if you've been watching, if any of you guys watch the Quantum World, right, we were just again on the cover of Nature magazine, and the way we've proven that we're gonna be quantum relevant way sooner than we thought, because, what's that?
I said, I believe you.
Yeah, IBM's really moving.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that date came from our second roadmap.
Okay,
And
good.
I'm a quantum ambassador for IBM, so I'm allowed to speak to the press and whatnot about quantum, and we're moving that to the levels here.
Oh, very good.
So it's not just looking at the algorithm. By the way, those 4 NIST algorithms, 3 of them were created by IBM, and the 4th one, the guy who created it now works for IBM. So we're dumping a ton of money into it. Yeah,
Well, and there's more. There's more that NIST is evaluating,
yeah.
but they're further down the road. They're not even really talking about what they are. They're just saying they're evaluating.
But it wasn't just a name change for them. NIST actually enhanced the security. They tweaked them,
I heard, yeah.
each of them, right, to make them even stronger than what was.
So that's why when we released them in our HSMs 2 years ago, that was the pre-standard, right?
Right, that was the
And
crystal
so-
fiber straight up.
And then NIST took the pre-standard and then they did whatever they felt needed to be done to make it the standard.
Exactly.
And so we are all in the process of now creating, we've all got timelines or timeframes for when our products will have the standard algorithms in it. So once we put them into our products, they then have to go into the FIPS certification nightmare of a abyss, right, that takes 18 to 24 months or something like that.
Right.
Question?
Will those algorithms build on each other? So you had like 103, that'll be the standard for a few years, and then it'll be 104, or are those standards for different product sets?
It's totally different classes,
Yeah.
algorithms.
Yeah.
Different.
Different product
They,
sets.
the math is tuned differently.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of it's gonna have to do with some that are more complicated, could affect performance of your applications. That's why they wanna give you a variety of algorithms to choose from to figure out what's gonna work most effectively in your particular application that you're using them for. Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah, why wasn't there more about quantum at the conference today?
I don't know. I was so excited that we got picked up on this topic because,
Oh, yeah,
we've been
so
getting.
let's go start on quantum, and you were it.
We've been getting lost in the whole AI buzz. Like, it's hard to talk about quantum, but I'm starting to see a real strong intersection between the conversation about quantum and AI. I'm actually next week going to be in New York City for a quantum AI conference. I'm going to be on a panel there because there's a lot of strong synergies between those two topics. I think AI is going to leverage quantum computers, right, to make their searches faster. But then there's the threat with AI too, and so you've got to make sure that your quantum and your environment's safe from the quantum threat. But then there's a whole nother story about how to secure your AI environment against the AI threat as well. So A lot of intersections there, and zero trust, if you know, government's big on zero trust. So there's those three things, I'm seeing a lot of conversation around those three topics. Question?
Yeah, I see a lot of in my company, naysayers saying that it's not really coming soon. We don't really have to worry about it now. So.
Hey, if
Yeah.
that's
How
what
do
you
you-
want to do,
how
but
do
then
you
when it
go-
happens,
yeah, how do you go against
yeah,
that
who's
flow?
going to take responsibility for
Harvest
not
now,
having it
people
done?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
current,
Yeah. Last week I did an interview with WTOP that's going to be broadcast in the DC area in November, and we were talking about quantum and AI, and then he shifted into zero trust and more so in quantum and less on AI, and I was like, wow, this is unusual that somebody actually wants to get away from talking about AI and talk more about quantum and zero trust. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up on the radio versus what we talked about. But question?
Are you seeing any AI do security reductions or any evaluations of?
AI through security reductions? What do you mean by that?
Basically, are you seeing AI starting to evaluate some of the quantum resistant programs? Or
I have not. No, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Not that it isn't happening, but I have not seen that. Good questions.
One more
Anybody
question.
else?
Actually, CNSA 2.0 has the recommendations of the key length, and there's a DoD CIO memo that says everybody needs to increase the key length for RSA to 3072 by 2027.
Right.
Is that still an actionable memo versus or transitioning to quantum resistant algorithms?
I think
Both
that
are
was
very
kind of
similar
more of an
implementation.
interim thing until you could migrate to quantum. I think it was I think that's kind of what they looked at as an interim step before the quantum
Kind of
algorithm.
like Debbie Hellman and Elliptic curve.
Yeah.
It was a mid step.
Yeah, because of the process of getting, you know, the products into the fifth cycle and getting them certified, you're talking about 2026, 2027 before you can actually start, you know. Sometimes customers will, if you're in the fifth certification process and you're on the list, they'll go ahead and start using your products, but some will say, no, I can't do it until it's fifth certified. So now you're talking about 2027, 2028. So that's a good interim step until then. So I haven't read the FAQ. I've read a few things in the FAQ, but I haven't read it all because it's a little bit longer than I had time to go through before today. But I would look at that because there are some changes in that from the initial CNSA memo that came out a couple of years ago. Yeah. Okay, thank you.